Hello, I'm Jacob Kipkemei Meto. Today I'm going to talk about education disparities in indigenous communities in Australia. And a brief introduction. Australia is a country characterized by diverse landscape, unique wildlife, and multicultural population. Despite this palatable success, the country grapples with a critical local issue linked to the global education concerns. Australia struggles with educational disparities faced by the indigenous communities, especially the Aboriginals and the Torres Strait Islanders. This issue not only stifles individual prospects but also affects the global concern about the access to quality education. So, what is the local issue? The local issue is that indigenous communities in Australia face more educational disparities than their non-Aboriginal, non-indigenous counterparts. Indigenous Australians, for example, have a lower educational attainment than non-indigenous Australians. And this has been proven over time. For example, in 2021, there is a research that was conducted and it showed that only 40% of the indigenous Australians completed year 12, while 64% of non-indigenous Australians completed the level. In 2018, indigenous students at the higher level or higher education level in Australia stood at 1.8%. These disparities not only affect the access but also the quality of the educational outcome. So, what are some of the reasons for these disparities? One of them is historical factors. So, what are some of the historical factors that led to these disparities? One of them is colonial legacy. European colonization displaced indigenous communities from their land by uprooting them of their established educational practices. Two, you have the forced assimilation. European colonization imposed a Western style of education on these communities, which disrupted their traditional educational system. Three, we have the stolen generations. Colonialists systematically removed indigenous children from the community, hence affecting their continuity of the cultural education. And lastly, we have the cultural disconnection. This was done by imposing Eurocentric cultural curriculum, which led to the loss of the language and cultural engagement, hence affecting educational attainment among the indigenous Australians. Two is the socio-economic disadvantage of disparities. What led to, or what are some of the socio-economic disadvantages of disparities? One is higher levels of poverty. Indigenous communities frequently faced elevated levels of poverty, creating additional barriers to educational access and and success. 2 is limited access to quality schools. So indigenous students often encounter barriers to accessing quality education due to geographic isolation, inadequate infrastructure, and scarcity of well-equipped schools in their communities. Third is inadequate resources. Education institutions in the indigenous areas may lack essential resources such as textbooks, technology, and well-qualified teachers, hence impacting the quality of education that is provided to them. And lastly, lack of cultural relevant curriculum. The absence of curriculum that reflects the cultural diversity and heritage of the indigenous communities can lead to disengagement and a sense of alienation among the indigenous students. The other thing is on cultural and linguistic diversity, which has been caused by the disparities. What are some of the cultural and linguistic diversities? One is incredible diversity. Australians indigenous communities comprises of hundreds of distinct cultural and language groups, each with its unique heritage and tradition. 2, we have challenges in education. Providing culturally relevant and linguistically appropriate education becomes challenging. Why? Because of the vast diversity within the indigenous communities. And third, tailoring education. A one-size-fits-all approach is inadequate. Why? Because education must be tailored to the unique needs, languages, and cultural nuances of each community. What are some of the global educational concerns? Global educational concerns, one of them is interconnection. Interconnection, not an isolated issue. That is the first area to talk about. Educational disparities in indigenous communities are interconnected with global concerns about educational equity. 2 is the fundamental human right. Education is a fundamental human right. When any group faces systematic barriers, it raises global ethical and moral concerns. Third is global emphasis on equity. Apart from interconnection, you have the UN SDGs and educational equity. And when you talk about the UN SDGs and education equity, you talk about the global commitment. The United Nations and SDGs emphasizes the importance of achieving inclusive and quality education for all. Inclusivity and diversity is another thing. SDG 4 specifically targets ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education by promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. So, what are some of the proposals for fostering citizenship action? One of them, we have cultural competency. Why does cultural competency matters? So understanding and respecting the diverse cultures and languages of indigenous communities is essential for fostering inclusive and equitable education. Incorporate cultural competency. Training, integrate cultural competency. Training into the curriculum for teachers and the school staff. The other way or the other proposal is the action enhances educators' awareness, knowledge, and sensitivity to the unique needs of the indigenous students. Community partnership is the other area of concern. Why community partnership? Community partnership between schools and local indigenous communities are crucial for empowering indigenous students by fostering a sense of ownership and control over their education. Then we have mentoring and support programs. Mentoring and support programs are instrumental in providing guidance and encouragement to the indigenous students navigating the education system. The government should advocate for establishment of a mentoring and support programs that connect indigenous students with role models. The other proposal is mentorship offers guidance from individuals who have successfully navigated the education system, providing valuable insights and motivation. The other thing is that it also fosters a sense of belonging and community within the educational journey. Challenges facing enacting this proposal. One, we have the institutional challenges. How does this become a challenge? One is that limited funding challenges. Securing funding for education initiatives in indigenous communities is challenged due to budget constraints and competing priorities. Two, we have the ideological challenges. Cultural bias challenges, which involves prejudiced beliefs, may hinder the efforts to provide culturally relevant education to indigenous communities, which are perpetuating cultural bias. Another challenge is the political challenges. Bureaucratic challenges is one of the political challenges. So the complexities of the government bureaucracy can impede the swift implementation of the policies and initiatives aimed at addressing educational disparities in the indigenous communities. In my conclusion, global concerns addresses education disparities in indigenous communities transcends local boundaries. It is a global concern rooted in justice, equality, and human rights. Fostering citizenship action is crucial in tackling this issue, recognizing the collective responsibility to ensure equitable education for all. Challenges in fostering action, overcoming institutional, ideological, and political obstacles presents challenges that require concerted efforts from government, educational institutions, communities, and individuals. Call for collaborative action. By working together, we can move toward a more equitable and inclusive education system, benefiting not only indigenous communities in Australia, but contributing to the global goal of quality education for all. Therefore, emphasizing the global significance of addressing indigenous education disparities encourages collective action and collaboration, acknowledging that a shared commitment is essential for meaningful progress. Thank you for that presentation.